Hi and welcome to part 2 of the video series of this Rockler material cart. In this part of the video, I'm going to be building the storage cabinet for the material cart. Hope you enjoy. For the storage cabinet below the Rockler material mate, I'm going to follow the plans that Rockler provided. You can download this at the Rockler site. So this cart will have 2 drawers and 2 shelves, and on the back side a little cubby. The plans are not super detailed, but at least gives you the part list mainly. I did have a piece of plywood from before, which I have already cut the bottom piece. Then I had to go to Woodworker Source to buy some plywood, and this is what I have over here. Already having cut the bottom panel, I did go online and use the Cutless Optimizer to figure out some of the other pieces. So I've inputted the data into it and it calculated this. So the first cut I'll do is here, which is the 17 1/4. And then after we'll cut this way for the other one, 17 1/4, and then we'll look at the rest after. So let's get started with that. So as mentioned, first cut is 17 1/4. And for the first time, I can use this material mate. I'll set my Jessam clear cut guides to the 3/4 inch plywood. Next cut is again still at 17 1/4. Next is 2 pieces at 18 inches. Next cut is 15 1/4. The first dado is 1 1/4, so I set the fence at 1 1/4. I have a router bit that's just slightly less than 3/4. It's 23 30 So we'll do that one, those cuts first. I have 2 cuts to do, and then we'll do the second one, which is at 6 1/2. So we'll start with the first one. So here's the first dado. So as I mentioned, we'll set up for 6 1/2 inch now. So we'll make a cut on the side pieces, then I'll have to do 2 cuts on the middle piece. Here's the center partition cut. So just doing a dry fit just to see the measurements. See, this piece is supposed to be 32, so let's just see what this is. This is about 32 1/8, so I'm just going to have to cut off 1/16 from each of these pieces, otherwise it won't fit in the cart. So let's do that. So now we'll measure it after trimming it. And it's just 32 exactly. So we'll measure and cut this to 32. So here's the main part of the cabinet, dry fit it together. Next step will be to glue it together. I think that should be enough. Plans do show some screws, but I think with glue, there's plenty of surface. It'll be strong enough. So we'll get to that next. So here's the cabinet, all clamped and glued. I did check the everything looks good. This centerpiece will have to be screwed from the top. There was no data in the plan for that. And then we'll have the back to put on, and then this can go onto the base. So we'll let this glue up dry. Next, I'm going to secure the center piece to the top using these trim head screws, number 8, 1.5 inch. Just going to mark both ends. Get it right in the center. I already checked that everything was square. Just going to pre-drill just to not split the plywood. Fill those holes with some wood filler and sand. That'll be done, and then the next step will be to install this on the bottom piece. Here, this step, we're going to attach the cabinet to the bottom. Again, the instructions are not very clear on how to do it. At one time I thought about pocket holes here, but I thought it might be a little hard to get in there, so I'm just placing it, centering it on the board, and then I'm just going to make a line and then drill some holes from the top part here, and then flip everything over and install the screws. So I'll just make that mark now. Next will be to put the back on. For the back piece, it should be 31.5 inches, which it is. So we'll cut that piece. Okay, so that fits perfectly. I'll just put some screws. Just put a little bit of filler in those holes. Next step will be to build the little cubbies in the front here. So here I cut all the pieces for the front little cubby. They say to put diodes here. I don't know if it's necessary, but we'll do that. Probably attach from the bottom here. On the sides, you'll do pocket hole there, there. Or those I could do from the other side, I guess. So we'll get that started. We'll start just by gluing these pieces in place. We'll let that set for a little bit. So here I'd mark where the centerpiece are going. So I'm just going to drill holes here so I can screw from the other side after. Next, I put the pocket holes in here. And we'll put that down. I think I'll just put a little bit of glue there. So I just put a clamp here so the piece won't move when I drill in the pocket hole screws. So next, we'll put the rest of the front cubby. You can start with the two sides, and then it could go on the inside. Just put a little bit of glue. Lastly, we'll just do a few holes on the bottom to hold it down. Here's the cabinet fully assembled. In the rear, we have these cubbies to store items. In the front, we have 4 partitions. Here, the plans show for drawer here. I'm not sure exactly if I'll do drawers here or not. We'll see, or leave it as shelves. And then there's storage at the top. Next step will be just a little bit of sanding, rounding off edges, and then doing the poly. And then I'll build the drawers, and then it'll be installing it into the cart. I've completed applying 3 coats of poly. Now it's time for the drawers. First measurement here, 15 3/8, 15 3/8. Six and a half. Here altogether we have 8 inches. And I think I'll just making 2 smaller drawers, so each will be just under 4 inches. Depth wise, I have 17 and a half, so I'm going to go with 16-inch drawer depth. So I think that's all the measurements required. So now I'll just go and start cutting the plywood for the drawers. For the drawer pull cutout, I just rigged up this to hold the board in place so it won't move. The plan showed 1-inch Forstner bit, but I'm doing 2-inch just to make it a little bit bigger. That'll be the drawer pull handle. I'm just using some soft maple for the drawer fronts. I've cut all the pieces for the drawers, a total of 6 drawers, 2 bigger ones on the bottom and then 4 smaller ones at the top. In order to maximize the depth, especially for the small ones, I did a rabbet on the bottom. Normally I do a groove for the 1/4-inch bottoms, but to maximize the depth, I'm doing a rabbet instead. And just so they're all the same, I did the same thing for the bigger drawers. These are not very big drawers, so I'm not too worried about the strength of the bottoms. With glue and brad nails, it should be plenty strong. As mentioned before, the fronts I made with brown maple, and the sides 3/4 inch, and the rest of the box 3/4 inch plywood. I'm going to do something different than I've ever done before. Say the back, I will put pocket screws to put them together. And then the front, I will do pocket screws again, but doing it this way. Again, it's not the way I usually do. Usually I'll do a box, and this won't be as strong, but again, being small drawers, I think will be plenty. This way I'm also going to be hiding the drawer slides just so dirt doesn't get into it. So we'll get to assembling them, but first I think I'll install the drawer slides so I can dry fit a drawer just to make sure everything's perfect. So I did buy the soft closed 16-inch on Amazon, so I'll get to installing those first. Just to make the installation of the drawer slides a little bit easier, just rig this little jig. This piece is the thickness of the drawer fronts and just the height of the drawer slides from the bottom. So just have that in there, have that flush with the front, and then install the drawer slide. So I'll get to that. All the drawer slides have been installed. I've just put in the drawers just to make sure everything's good, everything's sized perfectly. So now I'll start assembling the drawers. Again, I'll be putting pocket holes here and for the front, size going into the front. I did pre-mark the placement of the holes so I don't get mixed up. We'll start here. All the pocket holes now have been drilled. Next is the assembly. So here's a dry fit of the assembly of one of the smaller drawers, just using these corner clamps. I just put this front piece temporary, it'll be removed as the sides will be screwing into the front. So let's start by adding some glue now. That's the first small drawer. After we'll cut out bottoms. So I'll continue with the rest of the drawers. The drawers are all put together. Next step is to measure for the drawer bottoms. Here we've got 16 and 5/16. Here's 14 exactly. So we'll need 6 altogether. They should all be the same size. Going to just use some leftover materials that I had from old projects. I think I have enough. These are shop drawers, so I'm not too concerned about what they look like. So I'll get those all cut. So now I have all the panels cut out. Now it's just time to install them all. I'll just put some glue around and then some brad nails. Here's drawer 1 complete. I'll just finish all the rest of them, sand, and then apply 3 coats of poly. So I completed sanding all the drawers, applying a slight chamfer just to soften all the edges, and put 3 coats of poly. So now it's time to install the drawers. Has a spacer. I'm using these handy shims. Each is 1/16, so I'm just using 2 everywhere. So start by putting the first screw. Pull it out just a little bit to get a second screw in. Put another screw. Let's check its operation. With the shims removed, the drawer works much better. I'll just do the rest of the drawers now the same way. For the top drawers, I have to be a little bit creative, so I just put a 1/4 inch plywood here, and then the shims, and then I'll install the drawers just as before. Here's the storage cabinet with all the drawers installed. They all work great. Next step is to install this cabinet in the Rockler material mate. Now it's time to fit the cabinet into the material mate. I did cut the ends of these bolts just so there's a little bit more space there. I don't know if I needed to, but we'll see. I've removed the drawers also just to make it a little bit lighter. Fits in there perfectly. Looks good from all angles. I think I'll just clamp it so I can put it on its side to screw it in so it doesn't move. This still goes down like it should. Or maybe it doesn't. Well, that's odd. I built it to their specifications and this doesn't fall the way it's supposed to. So this is quite weird. Either have to modify the cubbies in the front to make it fall the way it's supposed to by notching that out. Use it like that, which I don't think is great. And the other option, I guess, is this is adjustable. Have to raise it, although it's going to end up being a higher workbench with the top than I had hoped for. But I think that'll be the first thing I'd try. I'll just remove the bolts and raise it by 1 or 2 notches and see what happens. So I had to raise it 2 notches higher. Now, without the top, it's 35 and the top is 1 1/8. So it's going to be just a little over 36. I guess not too bad. If I find that to be a problem in the future, I'll lower it by 1 and cut a notch here. But let's see if this will work. So now there's no issue. Like as I said before, the plans don't have much detail, but this will work. So now I'll just clamp this down, put it on its side just to put a couple of screws in to hold it in place. So let's do that next. Here's a completed cart with all the drawers installed. I also attached the top using number 6 3/4 inch coarse screws. So the drawers all function as they should. Plenty of storage for I guess all T-truck related stuff and as well as other things. For the front, I added this little piece. They say when you put a top on, you should have a piece that's even with the top. Originally, I made it the size of the top, but then these things wouldn't turn, so I had to cut them. Now with the top, you can fit 1 sheet of plywood. I'm thinking maybe if I could get some of these manufactured somehow, to add another inch, then I could get 2 sheets of plywood. So everything functions as it should. Now we can haul plywood with no issue. This concludes this video of the assembly of the Rockler material made cart, as well as the build of the under cabinet storage. I hope you enjoyed this video, and hopefully it'll help somebody if they want to build something similar. Thanks again for watching, and hope to see you soon.